Today's episode highlights the road back to pleasure for women. But more importantly, what I learned from this episode is the gift of being in connection with women that have experienced more life than you. Cindy Scharkey is a registered nurse turned sex educator who invites women into the freedom of their bodies, pleasure, and intimacy. We talk about how mindfulness is the gateway to have better sex, experience more pleasure in the day-to-day life, and erase the belief that women don't deserve pleasure. Talking with Cindy was like having a glimpse of what my future could be like in liberation of sexual freedom. If you are new here, you are listening to the How We Get Thru podcast, a place for you to feel connected through deep and meaningful conversations with healers all over the world. I'm your host, Jen, a licensed therapist and founder and CEO of the How We Get Thru app. My mission is to bring you affordable and diverse therapy resources to help you get through the hard stuff, all in one place and at your own pace. Welcome to the How We Get Thru community. Hello, and welcome back to the How We Get Thru podcast. We have a spicy podcast episode for you today. I'm also a singer, Cindy. Welcome, Cindy Scharkey.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Cindy is a registered nurse, and she's a sexual health educator for women and parents. And we are going to talk about women's pleasure and erotica and all the things. And so welcome, Cindy. We just chatted for the first time. We've met for the first time, and I feel like we're fast friends already. And I'm so excited to where we go today together.
Good to be here, and I am too. I'm excited too.
So with every show, we start off with a mental health myth, and we would love to know yours around sexuality or sensuality.
I think one of the myths I'm trying to debunk on a daily basis with my platform and community is that we don't deserve pleasure. This idea around, and that's my podcast, is we don't give ourselves permission for pleasure, especially as women.
Yeah. And why is that?
Well, I think there's a lot to it. I think that one piece is many women are trained up to focus on others, to care for others, to give to others, to be givers. I mean, I was.
Yeah.
And because of that, I often think we have a harder time focusing on allowing ourselves to be given to, or to receive, or to experience pleasure. I think that's one piece. I think some people are really trained up in a way to see pleasure as bad, or naughty, or evil even, or disgusting. I mean, the words that come out of women's mouth that I meet with is, there is that element of, this is not okay. And I think that's a big piece.
Like shaming,
yeah,
kind of.
Almost like pleasure is shaming. Yes, interesting. Somebody was interviewing me for a different podcast, and they emailed and said something in pleasure, and then in parentheses he said, I don't know, it feels weird to even type pleasure like that. Ding, ding, ding.
Wow.
See, it's that feeling like saying pleasure. It's also so often only related to sexual pleasure instead of pleasure. And I think that's some of it too. I'm sure there's other things, but that's my 2 cents.
But I love that idea, like sexual pleasure is just one piece of it. Can we receive pleasure from other things, from food, from sunshine, from moving our bodies, from connections, from laughter, right? From softness of something?
I think that's a good question to start with for people listening is, do you feel like you give yourself permission for pleasure in your day-to-day life, in the everyday?
Right.
Is that something you embrace and feel worthy of and explore and are intentional about?
Yeah. And then I think we were talking a little bit before about like divine feminine, and I talk a lot about like masculine feminine energy, and the feminine energy is to receive and not to give. And so it's almost like, what is feminine energy? What is the connection here? And it's so simple, right? It's the art of receiving. Part of it is the art of receiving. And can I receive pleasure from something or someone else? Or from myself, and what would that do for my life? Would I be happier? Would I be less cranky?
Well, and honestly, I mean, Dr. Nan Wise, who's done a ton of neuro research on pleasure, she says we're in a pleasure crisis. We're in a
Wow.
crisis. People don't know how to experience and allow themselves pleasure, and their brains are being rewired to not experience it, to not know how. It's really fascinating. And how did we get to this place?
Yeah. Which is interesting because I was thinking about like, well, how do I receive pleasure on the daily? And I was thinking about like Netflix and watching a show. Like, is that pleasurable? But when you talk about the crisis in pleasure, it's almost like there's so many things vying for our attention that keeps tuning us out from ourselves, from our bodies, from our actual enjoyment. So yes, Netflix might be enjoyable, but is it tuning into that pleasure zone, into that joy zone, into this, I'm actually getting something back, or am I tuning something off?
Good question.
What does pleasure look like for you on a daily? Tell me about your timeline, your story. How did you get here? How did you get free, Cindy?
Oh, it's so great because that is how I feel. I mean, I guess, I'm almost 60, so it's taken me a long time to get here. And as I talk to younger women, what I want to say is don't wait. Start now. Now's the time. I think through nursing, I came to really understand the silence around sex for women. And I grew up in a very conservative background. There was a lot of shame, and your body couldn't be trusted. And I went to a conservative college. I loved nursing. I worked with women years and years. I married the love of my life, who always was a permission giver for me from day one. And yet that flipping of that switch of, sex is off the table and bad and no, no, no. And this is what I work with women on this issue specifically so often, is that it's hard to flip that switch to like, oh, I'm going to have great sex. I'm going to be so sexual. I'm so in my body. I can feel everything. I know what arousal is when you've turned all that off,
from an early
age.
Yeah.
So I just became more and more interested in talking out loud about sex and helping women be educated about their bodies. And then that progressed probably in my 50s of just evolving and understanding embodiment more. And I mean, Hillary McBride's been one of my greatest teachers on this, her books and writings, and I've been to one of her Sacred Feminine retreats, and I just really started investigating that piece for myself.
Wow.
And it's been nothing short of transformative.
Yeah.
So part of that practice for me is, and granted, I have adult children. I don't have littles in the home. I mean, I think of young mothers and, that stage, it's difficult to carve out time for yourself. But I think now in my 50s, I've learned to talk to my body in a different way. She is a she, and she is good. And I no longer exercise her, diet her into submission or smallness. I am over that. Done.
Yeah.
So the other piece to that is just really turning on my sensuality and delight piece, I call it. I want to be easily delighted.
Oh, yeah.
I want to walk around my days and notice and pay attention and just be in awe, be in wonder, be delighted. And that kind of outlook, and I do it with my senses, and we can talk about that, but that kind of way of being brings so much freedom and joy. And, because I can't not put this piece in, it carries over into your sex life. Because you are paying attention.
Yeah.
And it's just been a beautiful. Now I just want to tell every woman I meet because I'm having such a good time, and I want that for women. I want that freedom for them. So that's a little bit of my story.
Oh, and I think what you're pointing to is the art of being present. And when you can be present more often with pleasure, with joy, you can be present sexually in the bedroom, or you can be present with yourself or present with your partner to have a better experience.
Correct. Well, I do think we just assume, here's another myth, is that sex is just natural, or, there's no practice needed, or no work to go into it. And that is simply not the case.
Yeah.
And I think, too, that if we don't practice mindfulness outside the bedroom, or paying attention, or, focus, it's really difficult to do that in the bedroom.
Right.
The mental load is a real thing. So that running to-do list in your heads, especially young moms, busy working women caring for their parents. I mean, all across the board, it's really difficult to have that in action during sex if you don't know how to do it outside of that.
So another tip, ladies, mindfulness can also help you in the bedroom. So,
oh gosh. And I that has been just a newer practice in the last 10 years for me that has been, I just cannot believe the change in myself. And then those I meet with and teach how to do it is it's not that hard.
yeah.
But it is hard.
Well,
and it's the not judging, mindfulness is, you probably talk about this on your platform, I'm sure, but that idea of not judging the thoughts that come and knowing that thoughts are going to come. That's just normal.
Yeah.
But not judging them, saying I see you and letting them go.
Yeah.
Instead of ruminating down the rabbit hole of whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And just coming back to the present moment. I heard someone the other day, she was on a podcast. She has like a meditation app. And she said, your thoughts when you meditate are just as natural as your heart beating in your chest. It's going to come. It's going to happen. So work with it, right? Because I think people are like, I can't meditate, or I'm just thinking all the time. And so again, it's that invitation of like, yes, your thoughts are going to come. The art is letting go, being curious, and coming back to the breath or whatever present is for you in your body. And I think the same thing for sex is like, okay, you're going, or pleasure in the bedroom, whatever it is, whether you're by yourself or with a partner, you go off and you're like, oh, no. And you just come back to a sensation, I would imagine.
Yeah. What do I feel in my body, and where is what I like to say. What are you feeling? What is the sensation? I mean, say your partner's kissing you. Let's get practical. So say your partner's, kissing your neck and you like it and it feels good and you're getting tingly and warm, and then you think your kid's coming to the door, or you hear the doorknob rattle, and so all of a sudden you're on alert, and then you're thinking, I can't relax, forget it. And you don't even feel the sensation anymore. And then if you could tell yourself, I'm okay. No, everything's all right. No one's at the door. I don't hear anything. Now, what was I feeling and where? Can I go back there?
I love that.
I often think we don't give ourselves the grace for that. Often we either give up, right? Just, okay, forget it.
Yeah.
Or we just keep going down the rabbit hole, and we may be in the physical, but we're not in the sensations.
Right. And I think for me, as you're talking, I think there's a lot of pressure of like, what pleasure is and getting to orgasm quickly or getting on that road quickly. I think because pleasure for women has been mainly focused on the male or the other partner and not your own. And so for women, if you can just give us some facts, some details on what it's like for even a woman to be aroused, mentally, emotionally, physically, how long does that take, and what is the difference? Because I think that's the pressure is like, well, now it's going to take me 20 minutes,
I'm really glad you brought that up. Because, first we have to, you think I'm not going to come on and not bring my anatomy tools, right?
Vulva.
Okay, here's my vulva. And,
Yes.
right? This is the vagina. Here's the vulva. Here's the clitoris. But all the rest of the clitoris is behind, under the surface. So I just carry that around with me for any kind of impromptu anatomy lesson. You have so much erectile tissue that's available for pleasure. And that, do you see how the erectile tissue is not like a penis? It's not right out in front, like my mic. It's all tucked back in and spread out like this. And so it takes time for the blood flow to get to that, and for your nerve endings to wake up, and for your mind to say, oh, what am I feeling? Oh, do I like this? Do I want to continue? What's happening? All of these things. Most women's arousal is not 5 minutes like you see in the movies. Right. It might be during self-pleasure, but not with a partner. So we have all these misguided ideas from media that women should work fast and furiously like men do, and it's just simply not the truth.
Yeah.
And so most women, to reach orgasm, to have enough arousal to all that erectile tissue, is 12 to 20 minutes or more to really get aroused to a point of being able to allow for orgasm. Because orgasm is truly something you allow to happen. You don't make it happen.
Tell me more about that.
What do you think about that, number one, when I say that? Do you think, I don't believe that? Or do you think, what do you think?
What do I think about that? It's interesting. I think I have to work to get an orgasm. So that doesn't compute to me. Not that I'm like, that's wrong, but I'm like, oh, but no, I had to work for that. I had to be like really, and I think sometimes there's a choice a little bit of like, is it going to happen? It's not going to happen. Are you going to do it or are you not going to do it? Like that kind of, and that's, I think, also called edging, right? Is that a form
Well, edging is bringing yourself like to the point of orgasm and then dialing it back. And then bringing yourself to the point and dialing. And people enjoy edging because it's kind of playing with that dynamics of how much pleasure and arousal can I build before I allow myself to go over the top, so to speak.
Right. Exactly.
But your language here is so normal, Jen. I mean, you're saying what I hear every day. Like, is it going to happen? Is it not? You say, There's just so much pressure that we put on ourselves to make ourselves orgasm. And I do think that idea of changing our language to allowing ourselves. Can I allow myself to lean into that sensation and see where it carries me?
Ooh, that's way more fun.
It's just a different way of approaching pleasure. And also, people have so much pleasure without an orgasm. You don't have to have an orgasm every time to experience pleasure in an experience. To take the pressure off that is really nourishing. It's a nourishing exercise. To just bask in what the sensations are. What is your body feeling and where? Instead of will I get there or won't.
Yeah. And I like that like openness for the outcome, because it could lead you into a different type of orgasm or a different, like, it's expansive. It doesn't feel like a one way, it has to look like this, or even like positioning. It's like, well, I can only orgasm in this way, or, I think we've just put ourselves in boxes because we're not allowing ourselves the time to explore.
Yes.
Or even communicating that with a partner, right? Like, can we spend 20 minutes and see what happens, right?
Yes. Another little piece to that, I think that many women find they do better to tune into their arousal if they allow themselves like a transition time before a sexual encounter. Meaning they don't jump into, sex with no allowing of a transition time. There's no other way to put it. It's like, how else do we move into our bodies, move into our senses, take off the hats of our work and our parenting and our caregiving and our whatever it is, and come back to ourselves and say, here I am. Oh, here I am. Whether that's dry brushing your whole body or taking a warm bath or shower or changing your clothes or just getting naked and dancing to one song, or, okay, you don't have to get naked, but just dancing to one song.
Why not?
I highly promote getting naked. But it's, we don't allow ourselves or give ourselves permission to have a little in-between time to get into the place where we can feel the sensations, feel the arousal, want it. And I think that's really key for a lot of women, especially the young moms. I mean, I'm just, every young mom I meet with and I go through these kind of practices, it's kind of a light bulb. Like, I just can't go from mommy to lover.
Sex kitten.
Who can?
Yeah, exactly. And again, but I think that all is the idea of what a wife and woman should be that needs to be dismantled because it's for someone else. I need to be a mom for someone else or a sex kitten for someone else. What does it mean for me to be sexy for me or to connect with my body outside of that or outside of other people or the responsibility for someone else?
I do think that the couple things I just can't, I don't know, do you talk about desire on the show? Have you had an episode with someone that talks about the different ways you can experience desire?
No.
So I guess since you're giving me a little entry here, you're saying like, how do I just get turned on? Or, desire, your energy for desire, your libido, so to speak, comes from the same tank as everything else. So people seem to believe, here's another myth for you, Jen, is that your sexual desire is going to come from a different tank, like from somewhere else. Where?
Yes. Somewhere
just
you
going
gotta
to pull it out of the sky or pull it out from under the bed. I mean, that is not going to happen. So if you are depleted, your energy is, just in the toilet, you're not going to have desire. Nothing's wrong with you. You just don't have any energy, so you don't have any desire.
I love that, Cindy.
Well, I mean, let's say, keep saying it out loud. I have postpartum moms, post-birth, after-birth moms who are like, something's wrong. I'm broken or something. I go, when did you sleep a whole night last?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I can't even remember. Well, you're exhausted. You're not going to have desire. You're exhausted. It all comes from the same tank. And the other flip of that I want to talk about, because I just want to tell everyone, is we don't all experience spontaneous desire, Jen. We do not all look at our partner bent over the dishwasher with their butt crack showing and like go, I want you. We just do not. I know that's how it's in the movies, just, throw me up against the wall. I'm going to orgasm in 5 minutes. And, I want you to like that. Sometimes, sure, sometimes. But many people experience a desire in a responsive way.
Yes.
So they have to have some arousal first, or things that make them feel yummy and delicious and tingly and warm. And then they say to themselves, I do like this. I want more of this.
We should do this again.
We should do this more, right? This is a normal way to experience desire, but we don't talk about it. So we think something's wrong with us if we don't just want sex out of the blue. But, desire is your motivation to have sex. So if arousal is what you need to be motivated to have sex, that's a responsive desire style.
Which I think most women are I'm definitely not all women.
No, but
I would say
good percentage.
Yes.
Or they do a combination of both. And as we age, we all move into more responsive desire. So
why is that?
It's just the way
hormonal?
With the lowering of our hormones, we don't have as much of that, out of the blue, want sex feeling. And We need our brain to have a little more stimuli and a little more things going on with our senses and more arousal, and then we have more desire. Anyway, I just, these are the kinds of things that I just think,
Cindy.
I think it's so important for everyone to know.
Well, it's interesting because I'm in a fantasy smut book stage. Like there's they're great. They're wonderful. But a lot of it is just the buildup. It's like when they're actually having sex, it's written from a woman's perspective. So the sex is also still very beautiful, but also like just exactly what a woman wants, But it's that buildup, even in the movie, it's like the buildup. Then they can have that orgasm for 5 minutes because I've been chasing them for, 30 minutes. Are they not? Right. And I think that is just so important for me in a partnership, and even I guess on my own a little bit in self-pleasure. But it is like it's asking that question, like, it's because a lot of couples like schedule sex. Are you pro scheduling or against
100%
pro? Yeah,
I think because two things. One is everything's on our calendars.
Yeah.
So if we don't prioritize sex on our calendar, it doesn't happen. It's right. You're hard pressed for it to happen.
Yeah.
I like to call it sexy dates. Sometimes if you switch the language a little bit, people are more prone to not feel like it's a checkbox, right?
Yeah.
I like to think of it in the sense of you're creating anticipation. I mean, think about why hotel sex is so great, or on vacation it's great, right? Because you're anticipating it. You know it's coming, and you're kind of like, you're thinking about it, and you're planning for, what am I going to bring? Do I have my lube? Do I have my toys? What are we going to have with us, right? And that's the same with scheduling a sexy date, is you can create anticipation for yourself, right? You're turning yourself on. Like, how do I turn myself on, right?
Right.
Because our brain is by far our most important sex organ. It's the way we turn ourselves on or the way we turn ourselves off. It's a 2-part system in there. So you got to release the brakes and you got to push the accelerator.
Because I think it could either be pressure, like, oh, we have to have sex tonight, or it could be anticipation. And how do you kind of choose or be aware of like, oh, I feel more pressure. How can I ease into excitement in that?
Yes. And you have to have sex worth wanting. So I'm not going to get started, but it's like, this is key, is it not? So if we're planning for sex worth wanting, that's not a checklist. That's a go team.
Yes.
Right? That's a sign me up.
Yes.
But that's often the first question I ask women. If they tell me their desires, I don't have any desire. My libido's gone. I said, are you having sex worth wanting?
Oh, man, that is a good question.
It's the question. One of them. Mm-hmm. And not to say we're going to have fireworks every time no, I'm just saying in general, are you experiencing pleasure in the sex you're having? Because that draws you in for more.
Yeah.
When there's pleasure there, we're drawn to initiate and to have that more. Plan it more, have a date for it more.
And is that something like you encourage people to talk to with their partners about, or getting into like erotica or fantasy, or, I mean, it doesn't have to be like this like totally staged thing, but is that a part of like having more fun in the bedroom?
Because shouldn't the bedroom be our playground? I mean, where else do adults get to play? It's our playground.
I love that.
And how many of you and your friends see it that way? And that's a big. How can you make it more playful? It doesn't have to be precious every minute.
Right.
Like, can't we just have a good time? Sometimes you're going to laugh hysterically and fall off the bed. So great. Maybe you're going to try some new position and it goes like sideways and you're just like, okay, that's a no. But you learned something.
Yeah.
Right? I think we just take it so seriously instead of making it playful and fun. And coming back to your piece about communication, if you're partnered, that's the key to all of it. And not just one and done conversations. I mean, I've been married for over 36 years. I mean, wow, it's an ongoing conversation because we evolve and change. Our partners evolve and change. And we have our sexuality and our partner has their sexuality and we have our sexuality together. And if we could see that, that's huge. We could have a whole podcast just on that.
Yeah.
But if we can see it that way and then have ongoing conversations about how we can create that sexual energy together, is just delicious.
Magic.
Yeah. It's magic. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's something spiritual about that. Like there's something very, combining about almost like two souls and being so vulnerable and passionate, and that you do create magic and freedom. And so it can be really healing, I think, in a lot of ways.
If people could think about being curious, just think curious and creativity. Those are key to a long-lasting, yummy sex life. Peggy Kleinplatz and the research for magnificent sex. I just want to give your older listeners a little. The people who report having magnificent sex are over 50.
I want to come back to age because what do you think happened within you that kind of was like, fuck it, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter anymore? Because I think I'm 39. And so there's still, I'm like, what do I need to kind of break free from here, internally and externally and part of this is the podcast, like we're talking about it, but I just think you must get to an age where, and I feel that now a little bit, if I look at my 20s, I'm like, oh, none of this matters. What am I living my life for? Who am I living my life for? And I think there's something there. And maybe you can kind of connect the dots of like, I don't know how we can cultivate that now, or if you're in your 30s or in your 40s, but like, what is the question that we need to be asking ourselves in that?
I love that. I wish when I was younger, I had, number one, come to accept my body as she is.
Yeah.
That I had, that's my encouragement to women, is to, can you, see your body as a she? Can you talk to her kindly? Can you learn to pay attention and listen to her? As a nurse, I knew, like, patients would not listen to the whispers, and then their body had to yell in order for them to pay attention.
Yeah.
And then we're in dire straits. But can we start to pay more attention to what our body is telling us? Can we breathe and get centered and feel and pay attention to cues? Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Do I need to go to the bathroom? Does something hurt? Do I have pain? Am I exhausted? Can we learn to pay attention in those more simple but profound ways, and learn to regulate our own nervous system with our breathing? And I'm sure you talk about these things. So can we start there? And then can we learn how to talk about some of those things if we're partnered with a partner? How that's helping us, how that kind of thing would be helpful if I had 20 minutes to do these kind of things and get settled in my body. I feel like I could really meet you with a lot more presence and anticipation.
Yeah.
I most partners are like, sign me up. I'll be in charge of whatever we need to do. Go. I do think there's an element of us not asking for what we need. Not thinking we're worth asking for what we need. And we are. On top of that, it's what we talked about at the top, is learning to pay attention to pleasure every day.
Listen.
I mean, learning to pay attention to how you feel pleasure in your body with your senses. What lights you up? What makes you tingle? What creates warmth? What makes your toes curl? I mean, what is happening around you? I'd love if people would pick one sense a day and just pay attention to it all day.
Oh, that's good.
So like smell. If you walk by some lavender, put your hand across it and bring it to your nose. If you're cooking and you squeeze a lemon into something, bring that to your smell. Just pay attention. What is kind of ignites your sense with smell, and do it all day. You know, pick every day and see where you're sensitive and what lights you up.
Again, it's very simple. Like, the concept is very simple. It's, can we be really intentional with ourselves in that? Can we give ourselves permission to be intentional around that, in that it's not some crazy fantasy with wings and handcuffs and all. Like, it can be this, it's the simple art of coming back to self, coming back to pleasure, coming back to you, because you're unique.
Yes.
In what that looks like for you and what pleasure is for you.
Yes. I think, well, I know another big piece too is providing yourself with environment. Create the environment you want. Don't wait for a partner to do that for you. Because for many people, the environment is important to them. It helps them feel settled or safe. It helps them feel sensual. I'm not talking about always just candles and, mood light, but I mean, if you have your laundry on your bed in a pile, who wants to have sex there?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, sexify your space a little bit.
Right. Kids' toys. Yeah.
If you don't have a lock on your bedroom door, start there. These kind of things that we think, these are worth your time and your energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what makes you feel, textures on your skin? What do you, I think lingerie is more for ourselves than someone else. So, or your sweaters that you really like and feel yummy in, or maybe it's a scarf that you whatever it is, like, what are you doing to help yourself feel in your body and sensual? And are you moving your body?
Yes.
I've started a new practice here in my later in life, thanks to Hillary McBride again, but of dancing in the mornings.
Yeah. The hips.
Moving our bodies and without performance for no one else.
Yeah.
Is really helpful in moving things through our body as well as feeling in our body.
I love to do that. I think I said on another podcast, but the other day, if I'm just by myself, I will blast music. I was listening to Meatloaf. I will do anything for love, but I won't do that. Or I would do anything for you. Classic. And it is. I feel like I just want to be in a music video. I want to like do all the things, and I think I became disconnected from it for so long. I think just motherhood kind of does that in a lot of ways. And I'm like, oh no, this isn't silly. Like, I like this. I enjoy this. And I want to do it on my own. I don't want anybody in here. I mean, they could see me, but I really want to pretend I'm Beyonce in the mirror as I'm lip singing to her song.
There you go.
And moving my hips. And that feels good for me. So it's like, it gets to look like whatever you want it to. And sometimes it is reconnecting to old things or imagining new ways.
Yes. Yeah. You mentioned reading, erotica or smut fantasy or whatever. I can't remember what you called it. A lot of people do like story, so I'm going to circle back to that because they either like audio erotica, listening to little short stories that are spicy, that kind of help you use your imagination to picture, things that turn you on. Or why do you think romance novels do so well?
I know.
It's that build-up story that that creates anticipation. It's the same, it's what works for you. You have to figure out what kind of things help you push the on button, because we have a brake and we have an accelerator. That's how our brain works, right? Have you heard this?
Yeah.
We have a dual
Yes.
control system, right? So often we think the accelerator is what is driving everything. How do I turn on? But if you have things that are pushing your brake, that will override your accelerator.
Right.
So what is pushing your brake? It can be a lot of things.
Yeah.
But even investigating that question is super helpful.
Yes.
How do I turn myself off?
Yeah.
And then how do I turn myself on? Yeah. And if it's with erotica, great. If it's dancing naked before you're intimate, great. If it's nature, nature's it's one of the big it's for me. So
yeah,
it's just so
like doing it out in nature.
Just not so much doing it out in nature, but nature nourishes me.
Yes.
And because it nourishes me, I feel lit up.
Alive.
Yeah, alive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then how do we work with our mind? So we mentioned mindfulness. But I mean, I love Cindy Darnell says, eroticism is sex with the mind switched on.
Ooh.
So this curiosity and creativity piece is figuring out, how do I switch my mind on? Is it talking out loud? Is it, some of these things we've been talking about? Is it my imagination? There's a lot of different ways we can do that.
Have you explored like Tantra?
I have not, surprisingly. Tell me more. Have you?
No, but I know someone that teaches it, and the idea of that just, it feels like at the top for me, like this breathing together, this like looking at each other, this like closeness, because I think it is just a lot of breathing. I mean, with other stuff, but that I'm just like, wow, what would that be like? Like it's just is like tingly all over and exciting. Again, I think that connection to soul, there's like such a sensuality piece that I keep being drawn to, because I know the sexual route. Like I know where that I could still explore that, but the sensuality feels like for me, that connection to self more into me rather than the partner. The sexuality feels like for the partner. The sensuality feels like that's cultivated within me. And then I get to invite my partner into that. And that is more intimate. And that is more pleasurable in my mind.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned eye gazing, and I'm a big fan of that. So maybe I do part of the Tantra practices, but have you ever tried that with your partner during sex? No. Well, try it outside of sex first. Have you ever done eye gazing with like friends? Or wait, what'd you say?
We barely look at each other in the eyes outside of that. You know what I mean? That's just like...
I just did a workshop for women this last weekend, and I had us do an eye gazing exercise, and it's so powerful what we can communicate with our eyes without words. So no words. Just look at your partner. Try it with a friend. Try it with yourself in the mirror. Yeah. And just look at your left eye. So don't try to go between eyes. That's weird. And just see what you can communicate to yourself in the mirror with your eyes. Think of something nice to say. Something kind and gentle. And then try it with a friend or with your partner if that feels safe. And just not in the bedroom. I just want to look at you for try 15 seconds first. And I want to tell you something with my eyes and decide what you want to communicate. And then do that. And then if it works well, try it during sex. And what you're trying to communicate with your eyes.
God.
Oh. I mean, I'm welling up because it is. Yeah, it's all the yummy.
Powerful.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
Yeah. I mean, the eyes are the window to the soul. Like it is that. And I think we don't look a lot of people in the eye. We don't, we're not, again, I think we're just so distracted.
Mm-hmm.
We're on our phones, we're doing other
Sure.
things. And even in our partnerships, at least in mine currently, it's a very similar thing that we like skip over.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, have we ever looked at each other?
Mm-hmm. We get away
But
from it,
yeah.
Yeah. And we don't do as much face to face. Everything's virtual or,
Or passing by, like we're not stopping and taking the time again. So
Yes. It really allows you to feel seen.
which is vulnerable. So people are running away
Yes,
from
it's
that.
very
And I
it
think,
is very vulnerable. Yeah, even at the
yeah,
workshop I did, I let you opt out if it's too much anxiety for you to look at
yeah,
someone. But it is interesting, and I
yeah,
find it a really nourishing exercise
yeah,
practice. Yeah.
yeah. We need spaces to be more vulnerable in. So it's just like a question, is this too vulnerable? Does this feel too vulnerable? And what would it look like to enter into that?
To your level of comfort, to your level of tolerance.
Cindy, we can talk all day. I mean, like, gosh, we just got to get coffee and then we'll But where can you talk about your podcast? Can you talk about where people can find you and how to work with you? Tell us
Yes,
all the
thank
things.
you. Thanks for asking. I have a podcast called Permission for Pleasure. I refer to it in this conversation. It is really wasn't what I thought I was going to do. But with the pandemic, people kept saying, I need you in my ears, in my ears, in my ears. All the workshops were canceled and all that. So it's really evolving as I evolve. And
Same.
the conversations are around pleasure, techniques, embodiment, also, expanding that to sex and philosophy and young girls and what's happening with media and just it's all the things. It is really changing and evolving, and my community there is lovely, and I think we're building something for women especially, at good, solid, I call it, sex education, holistic sex education from your nurse friend, basically.
Yes.
So a lot of science-based. And I have a website. Everything's at cindyscharkey.com. I have a newsletter I send out with education for parents and on sex. Usually try to have tips for parents, too. I feel like it's really important for parents to have some good, solid cheerleading and education so they can be the educator in their homes. So that's a part of that. Yeah. So I just, I love meeting with women too. I do consultations, and I find sometimes many women come and say the problem is sex, and often we need to unravel a bit underneath what the true problem is. Because when we really understand ourselves, and we've been talking about this on the whole, the show, and we unravel the programming that we have ingested and swallowed whole, we can learn to take steps to be free.
Yeah.
A lot of that we've talked about on the show. So I'd love for anyone to join me that's looking for a little more education and a lot of affirmation.
Yes. We all need it, Cindy. We all need it. We'll wrap up here, but I just got so teary when you were talking. I think, oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry. But I do that a lot here.
That's good. It's leaking out. Tell me what you're leaking out about.
I think something really powerful about having the like younger and older women in your life. Like when I see you at almost 60, just freaking living your life, and I'm like, oh, like the mentors that we need in our life that I think we're so kind of cut off from in a lot of ways. And so I'm just like really grateful for our conversation.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, there's no sorry
just,
in that.
Grateful.
No, it is lovely. Yeah. It's lovely to connect with you and to with your community, and for women to come alongside each other, to buoy each other up, to speak the truth to each other, and to also encourage each other to be kind and gentle with ourselves.
Yeah. It's beautiful. So thank you for all your work that you're doing in the world. And thank you just for being here and saying yes and connecting with me. I cannot wait. We live very close, you guys, and we could have been in person.
We figured that out. So that is happening.
Yes, exactly.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Of course. And we'll have everything in the show notes. So check it out there. Thanks, guys. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you feel excited, no pun intended, as you dive into your own senses and curiosity around pleasure and what it can look like for you. Please check out Cindy's podcast and other offers. She truly is a gift to this world. And lastly, if you are loving what you're hearing, please give us a review on Apple Podcasts so that we can continue to reach and help others. We'll see you next time.